Hello everyone, and welcome to your fast and easy, no-nonsense beginner guide on how to play the hyper-accelerated dragon opening. Let's get started. So it comes after white plays pawn to e4, at which point you respond with pawn to c5. Now this is currently the Sicilian defense, and after white plays their move, most likely knight to f3, but if they play something else like knight to c3 or bishop to c4 for example, you're going to be able to play this in the exact same way. That way being the move pawn to g6. The idea behind playing this move is you're going to put this bishop on g7 to get onto this long diagonal. And that bishop is going to be very powerful for the rest of the game. Most of the time here, white will play pawn to d4, which I'll get more into, but first one quick sideline. Let's say white plays bishop to c4. If they play this and you continue with the plan, you're going to go bishop to g7. And if white just plays like castles here, then you're just going to go pawn to d6, promptly play knight to f6, castles with a good and safe position. But if white tries a knight to g5, which is very common at the beginner level, trying to sort of fried liver us here on f7, you can simply play a move pawn up to e6, blocking out the bishop from seeing this, as well as opening up your own queen to see the knight. And after white plays a move like pawn to d3 to defend it, you can then simply go knight to e7, at which point you'll promptly castle, play a move like pawn to d5 to kick out the bishop, and you simply have an advantage. But back to the main line here with the move pawn up to d4, white is immediately striking into the center, at which point you are going to capture. Now, the majority of people here do capture with the knight, however, capturing with the queen is a semi-serious alternative, and the reason white does this is that they are attacking our rook in the corner. So because of that, you have to play the move knight to f6 first, blocking out the queen from seeing the rook. And if they try pawn up to e5 here, then you have a nice little intermediate move, knight to c6, attacking the queen first, and after it moves, let's say queen to a4, then you can move this knight to the center like knight to d5, then you'll promptly go bishop to g7, castles, and you once again have a nice and safe position. But like I was saying, most people capture with the knight, at which point you will play the move bishop to g7, getting the bishop on the diagonal, and after white develops, most likely knight to c3, but once again, if they play different move like bishop e3 or bishop c4 or something else, you'll play in the exact same way. That way being the move knight to c6 here. What you're doing is you're developing the knight and offering a trade on the c6 square. Now what white should do here, and most of the time does do, is just play bishop to e3, defend their knight in the center, and keep developing. But if they do capture, this is not a horrible move, but it's not very good either, because after you capture back with the b pawn, not the d pawn, because then white can trade queens, and this is not very pleasant for you. After you capture back the b pawn, this trade is only good for you because now you have the added benefit of in the future playing rook to b8 to get onto the b file and potentially link up your bishop to unleash some pretty nasty attacks. How this will likely go is something like a bishop to c4 here, white develops, and you do want to be a little careful because if you just play knight to f6 first, white kind of has the nasty move here, pawn to e5. Now your knight is attacked and this is very annoying, so instead what I recommend is to first play pawn to d6. That way that square is covered, and after white castles, then you can play knight to f6, promptly castle, and you once again have a good and safe position. And after white moves, you can play a move like rook to b8 now, add some extra pressure on the b file, and you have a very good game here. So that's what to do if they actually do exchange on c6, but most people here will just develop bishop to e3, defending their center, and now you want to play in the same way as you do there. You play pawn to d6 first, really controlling the e5 square, and white's most challenging option here is queen to d2 and pawn to f3, which I'll get more into in just a moment, but most people here play bishop to c4, just developing the bishop, and here this is how you want to play. First you'll play knight to f6, preparing to castle, and you will on the very next move, let's say white goes pawn to h3, you just castle here, white will very likely also castle, and the way you want to play here is you want to develop this bishop, and the only good square for it is bishop to d7, which may look passive, however white has no way to actually punish us, so this is totally fine. White is very likely to play a move like queen to d2, preparing some bishop to h6 move, at which point you'll play rook to c8. E8, getting onto this semi-open c-file here, and you're targeting white's bishop, and white will very likely not like that, and they'll just back the bishop up, at which point you want to move this knight to the very strong e5 square. Now you've gotten a very strong knight in the center, and you'll potentially rotate to c4, and this trade is nothing but good for you, and if white ever tries bishop to h6 in any of these dragon positions, you never want to be the one that is capturing, because then you let white's queen right into your king side position. It's not horrible, but why would you let white get their queen all the way in here? Instead, you just want to ignore it and play a move like queen to b6, getting the queen onto a good square. If they capture, you can just recapture. This is not scary in the slightest, and you have a great position here. So that's what to do against any of those bishop to c4, or really any of the main lines here. However, the one line here where white does cause quite a bit of trouble is queen to d2 immediately, and not just queen to d2, but after we play a move like knight to f6, they play pawn to f3, preventing any pieces from coming to g4, as well as defending the e4 pawn even more. And what white is going to do here is going to go long castles and try to play g4 and h4 and start a king side attack. But the good thing is here you can play in the exact same way as you do in pretty much all the other lines. You're going to go bishop to d7 here, develop the bishop. Let's say white goes pawn to g4, trying to get, some stuff here. It's not scary. It's a bag full of hot air. Just play rook to c8 and continue with the plan. If white tries pawn to g5 here to attack our knight, we can simply drop it to the h5 square, and now white cannot really make any progress with their attack because the h pawn is blocked. So instead, if they just play a random move, let's say king to b1 here, you'll simply play knight to e5. Once again, you're going to play in the exact same way, potentially rotate this knight to c4 to get this trade, which is nothing but good for you. If white plays a move like h4, trying to get h5 in, you can simply respond with pawn to h5. Now white cannot really do anything. Once again, if they push, you can simply drop the knight back, like let's say back to e8. Yes, it's a little passive, but this knight will end up getting out, and white's attack is pretty much nothing but stopped. Alright, so that's how to play the hyper accelerated dragon for beginners. I hope you have a great day. Like, subscribe, do that stuff, and I will see you next time.